Hello. Hello, chat. Hello. Hello. How are we doing? Good morning. Good morning. Baddies. Good morning. How are y'all? Welcome in. Welcome in. How are we today? We doing good? We doing good? How are y'all? I'm doing great. I don't know how long we're gonna go for today. Might be a short stream because I got some stuff to do. Hi, Luna. Good evening. Hi, Luna. Let me give you a shout out. Hold on, bro. I got some stuff to do today, so it might be a short one. Not gonna lie. Not gonna lie. Is my... Hold on. Let me get my VTuber set up. Do you like the music? Hey, 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 hey. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. How are you, Luna? How are you today? How was your day? Was it good? I also got to head out in a bit, but I wanted to stop by and say hi. Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you for being here. I hope you have a good night. Yeah, I hope you have a good night tonight. Okay, chat. You know what? Let me not waste time. Let me not waste time. We are gonna watch. Okay, so you guys know how I've also vibing with these tunes. Yeah, hell yeah. Okay, so you know how I told you guys I've been watching Apothecary Diaries? Well, I found this documentary about tea. About tea. So I thought we could watch that today. It's like an hour. So, we'll watch the documentary and then we'll see how things go, okay? Let's go. Who's ready? Tea, 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 tea. Yeah, there we go. Wait. Yeah, there we go. Okay. All right. You guys ready? Let's watch.
It's the most consumed beverage on the planet other than water.
What? Really? Other than alcohol? Really? Someone confirm or deny that. For real? For real?
Water. Tea or chai
Oh.
is everywhere. From the sachets we make at home to the snacks and desserts sold in grocery stores.
Matcha.
We drink tea as a sacred...
Chad, do you like matcha? Do you guys like matcha? I like matcha. It depends. It depends on like how they make it. If they use the powdered ones, like the pre-made, the instant ones, it's a bit nah.
ceremony. Enjoy it in high society outings and rely on it to survive in some of the world's harshest climates. The story of tea is fascinating, from its first use as a source of food through centuries of trial and error, until we ended up with this. Tea would play a part in the spread of religion, trigger the Opium Wars, and even the American
Opium Wars.
Revolution. It's the subject of myths and legends, not to mention countless examples of...
Wait, there are myths and legends about tea? Bro.
Being much wilder than fiction. And so, well, we're diving in.
Actually, hold on. Let me do this. Because I want you guys to like support the video as well. Let me do this. Hold on. Jump scare. Go support the creators. Okay, there we go. Yeah.
Following the unbelievable path of one of history's most fascinating subjects. It's all about tea, today on OTR.
Ooh, OTR, OTR, OTR. Go follow them, Chad. Go follow. Go subscribe. Go like the video.
In 1857, a young Englishman named Samuel Beeton convinced his wife to help out.
Samuel Beeton? Where do they get these names, bro? Samuel Beeton?
With the cooking section of his...
What's he beaten? His meat? Oh, well, okay. I take that back. I take that back fully. God damn. I had to. I had to, gang.
Magazine, a new journal focused on issues of the home. Now, at the time, Isabella Beaton was just 22 years old, and so for her column, she enlisted the help of the magazine's readers, asking for input from housewives and family cooks what was the most important thing in their own homes. And after receiving more than 2,000 letters,
Everybody said
was
tea.
clear it was tea.
Wow.
And there wasn't even a second choice.
Wow.
Over the next few years, Mrs. Beaton would publish dozens of recipes for tea.
That's
Not
insane.
just the drink itself, but how it should be served to family members or travelers stopping in off the road.
The OG tea book.
She'd write about the differences between high tea, noon tea, afternoon tea, and tea for picnics. There were articles about winter tea, summer tea, and she even wrote instructions for what to do when your water's not good enough to make tea. You add a pinch of sodium bicarbonate. Now, Isabella
What?
Beaton is today regarded as
Really?
massively influential.
Okay,
in
this
the
is
world of
interesting.
tea. But the truth is, all she did was record what was already happening. Because pretty much everywhere, tea is more than just a drink. It's a social centerpiece, something that's a necessity of life. Those are
It is kinda, yeah.
and a major part of the human experience. Tea is presented to guests in Morocco, brewed in elegant pots in Russia, and enjoyed as breakfast in Ireland. On Mount Everest, Sherpas start each day with tea for good luck, and in Japan, well, the cha do brings together the 4 principles of Zen Buddhism. As a planet, we drink more than 5 billion cups
Damn.
of tea every single
I didn't realize tea was so like multicultural. Like we all have our various ceremonies with tea.
day. Restaurants across Asia put pitchers of tea, not water, on the table for customers. There's sweet tea, milk tea,
That's kinda
apple
true.
butter tea, and of course, bubble tea, perhaps the world's
Hey.
fastest growing culinary sensation. Almost every single culture has its own preferences when it comes to tea.
I remember the bubble tea craze, Chad. I remember the bubble tea craze. There was shops everywhere. Everywhere. I'm very iffy on tea. I really only drink matcha and white tea. Oh, okay, I see. I drink green tea. Most of the time, if I want to take tea, I drink green tea. Because I like it like that, you know. I like green tea. I like the Japanese green tea. It's really nice. Chinese green tea too. Or like Chinese, the regular Chinese tea. I get Chinese tea a lot. I order Chinese tea a lot. Like iced Chinese tea. Oof. It's so refreshing. It's so refreshing. I don't know if you guys had that, but if you didn't, you should. It's so refreshing. For real. Not kidding.
But the interesting part isn't how we drink
But
it.
bubble tea though. Ooh, bubble tea. Ooh. Ooh, it's so good. But it's so bad for you. It's so many calories, but it's so good.
But why? And how it arrived in all these different countries in the first
I don't like the actual boba though. Hot take. I don't like the actual boba. Because I feel like it's too chewy sometimes. Sometimes it's way too chewy and then your teeth feel kind of funny. You know?
place.
But I love the tea.
Trace the story of tea is to dive into a world of corruption and espionage. It's to follow the spread of religion and trade and also drug smuggling, colonization, and revolution.
What?
Talk about a commodity as much as a beverage, and to follow the stories of the wild characters who brought it into the mainstream. Nothing about
Wait, what does this guy say? Wait,
all the
wait.
story-
I say let the world go to hell, but I should always have my tea, brother. Ew. Calories? You mean flavor point? You're right, Luna. You're right.
stories of the wild characters.
You're right. You're exactly right. Sometimes, you know, when you burn a lot of calories, you gotta treat yourself to some flavor. We gotta go to Flavor Town. A Flavor Town. Have y'all seen Guy Fieri? I feel like I grew up with that guy. Bro. We're going to Flavor Town.
Who brought it into the mainstream. Nothing about the history of tea is going to be simple or straightforward, but as always, it has to start somewhere. So let's go back to the very beginning and get into the story.
I like the music choices. Hey, yeah. Listen.
There's a legend told in Chinese mythology that a
I was gonna rap.
very long time ago, a child would be born half human and half dragon.
American Dragon Jake Long. Confirmed. American Dragon Jake Long.
Almost as soon as he came out of the womb, he was talking. Able to walk after just 5 days, and within a year, he was already fully grown.
What?
A tribe in the rugged highlands. Now, Jiang Shunyan was known to be as strong as
Jiang
8
Shunyan.
feet tall, but what was most significant was that his skin was transparent. So
What?
anything he'd eat or drink, well, he could see its effect on the body. And this was important because Jiang was destined to become Shennong, the god of agriculture and the founder of Chinese medicine.
Okay.
Anyway, according to the story, after
Wait.
years,
Why that kind of look like me though? Why that kind of look like me? Wait, look at the horns, Chad. No way, no shot. Oh my god, bro, you cannot make this up. You outmarked that, bro. Welcome in, welcome in. Bagel Beat? Welcome, Bagel Beat. You outmarked that, bro. No, man, that's my final form, bro. That's my final form. Somebody clip this. That is insane. That is insane. Oh my god. Welcome in, welcome in. How are you? We're watching a documentary about tea. It's chat confirmed. I guess it's out. I am the Chinese god of agriculture. I'm him. I guess it's out now. Ain't no hiding no more.
agriculture and the founder of Chinese medicine. Anyway, according to the story, after years of traveling through the countryside, one day, Shennong ate no less than 72 poisonous plants. And together,
What?
the toxicity was too much even
He's the OG Apothecary Diaries.
for a
He's
god.
the OG Mau Mau.
So he collapsed on the ground, but just at that moment, some leaves fell from a nearby shrub and landed in his boiling pot of water.
Oh.
With his last strength, Shennong filled his cup, took a sip, and found himself restored and completely healed. And from then on, well, he'd have a new title, the God of Tea.
Damn.
Shennong would spread his new favorite herb across China.
The God
and
of
become
Tea.
ubiquitous after his son Huangdi would unify the empire, creating a powerful tea-drinking society. The story of Shennong and tea is essential in Chinese mythology, and the only problem is that it's a complete misunderstanding. It wasn't supposed to be about tea at all, at least not until much later. Now, before we continue, let me explain something important.
Okay.
For the first 2,000 years of Chinese writing, the word used for tea is a character known as tu, but all that word meant was something bitter or medicinal that was boiled in water.
Okay.
According to archaeology and ethnobotany, if you somehow traveled back in time to ancient Xi'an and asked for a glass of tu, the odds are you'd be handed something made from sow thistle, a
What?
relative of the dandelion. There was
Okay.
also tea made with chicory, from Chinese knotweed,
Chicory?
carpenter's herb or brownwort, and from flowers
What
like
is all
chrysanthemum,
this, bro?
jasmine, and osmanthus. And it's not even incorrect to refer to this as tea because it is in Chinese. But we're not here to talk about herbal tea or flower tea. We're here to talk about this. And if this doesn't actually come from ancient China, well, then what's the real story? Well, for that, we need to look 1,000 miles southwest of what was once the Chinese border, to the hills of Sichuanbana, around an area known as Pu'er. According to botany and archaeology, approximately ground zero for a plant called Camellia sinensis. or
Okay.
Tea. Now, on the entire continent, this might be
That
the
sure
region
looks like
we
tea.
understand the least. It has a long and extremely complicated history and is home to 25 of the 56 recognized ethnic groups in the entire country of China, a nation to which it's belonged since the Mongol conquests. We have no way of knowing which of these groups was the first to domesticate tea. Maybe it happened in more than one place simultaneously. But all we know is that around 2000 BC, all of a sudden tea, or la in local languages, starts showing up all across a swath of the highlands from
Damn, they
Myanmar
discovered
to
it.
Assam, India. But it wasn't being used as a drink. It was a source of food. The leaves
Oh.
packed with nutrition and vitamins, polyphenols, antioxidants, fiber, and probiotics. Tea is one of the healthiest plants endemic to that highland region, but it's also incredibly bitter when you eat it raw. And the leaves are so tough and sinewy that they're almost inedible. So why all of a sudden was tea in demand? Well, the breakthrough seems to be when
Hi, Ziggy. I'm muted, but wanted to say hi. All the pooling in-laws and their kiddos. Oh, no. I get it. Have a great night, Ziggy. Thanks for stopping by. Let me know how it goes. Yeah. There we go.
Farmers started packing tea leaves into pieces of bamboo and burying it all underground to ferment. This would break down the starch, soften the flavor, and even increase the nutritional content. And we know exactly how important this would become to the local diet because it's still made that way today, a specialty of the rural hill tribes around Pu'er in Sichuan-Ba-Na. And of course, it's a national specialty in Myanmar, a
Oh.
place where fermented tea leaves are still a part of almost every single
Oh, it's a dish? I didn't know that. Tea break 1. Fermented tea leaves. Ooh.
Every day, Namsu restaurant receives delivery of fermented tea leaves straight from the farm across the border in Myanmar.
Okay.
The region where the tea is grown is called Shan State, along the Yunnan border and where the plant is endemic. But it's not just Shan cuisine that uses tea. It's essential everywhere, and you could make an argument that lepetok, or tea leaf salad, might be the definitive flavor of Burmese cuisine.
Really? Okay, I never knew that. I never knew that. That's crazy. I don't think I've had much Burmese food, to be honest. Okay. It's like a paste. Is that an egg? It's served with an egg?
So 4,000 years ago, when we first see
He's chatting it up.
eating tea as a part of a traditional diet, they were adding burrata to the top. And no,
Burrata?
just kidding. This
Very
is
modern,
this
very
is a very
modern.
modern interpretation of one of my all-time favorite things. Tell me real quick, what do we have on the table? We'll get to these two last, but these three tea leaf
So
presentations.
what we have now is we have 3 different styles of how
Bro, she speaks good English. Putting subtitles there it's such an insult. Bro, what do you mean? No. She speaks good English though. Why give her subtitles?
salads can be actually made. Very versatile. So you have here, starting with the very traditional Burmese tea leaf salad, which we actually explained earlier. Fermented tea leaves, but we added the mixer bean, some vegetables on it, and you have some garlic and a chili on the side, and a piece of lime. And the second one, you have it our
Bro.
Namsu Shan style, or a simple or simpler versions of how traditional Burmese tea leaf salad.
Ooh, it looks
can also
good
be made
though
in
with the
very
garlic
similar
and
way.
stuff.
And but the difference between traditional tea leaf salad and a Shan tea leaf salad is we don't add any peanuts or crunchy things. Instead, we added Shan sticky corn. So that's the main difference between traditional one and a Shan style. And the last one is we have a very modern, but very comfort food. We call it drinking dish. Pounded mutton tea leaf salad at the bottom. On top, a bit of fancy, we added the burrata cheese on top. And
Ooh, that looks good, Chad.
Smoothest skin on the side.
And if this wasn't our first location of the day, I would have a beer with this because it's one of the world's great
Yeah.
drinking foods. We talked about this a little bit as they were starting to prepare the food, but I want you to kind of explain to me just how this is not on the menu at Namsu. This is the classic lepetok is not on the menu here. But when I told you that we were coming and we were going to film about tea, and I asked if it was possible for your cooks to prepare this, most people know how to make this.
Yeah.
This is a pretty well-known dish across Myanmar. You ask somebody, do you know how to prepare a lepetok?
I do.
Everybody does.
Everybody does.
Or at least call dad or mom.
I think we were born with this, like how to prepare the tea leaf salad at home.
Damn,
like,
okay.
It's even you're a stranger to, let's say, when you visit Burma, and you will be invited by one of the Burmese people, and you will be at their home. And without this, the hospitality of Burmese wouldn't complete it. So I think we were born with this tea leaf salad with a cup of tea on the side.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, chat. I didn't know they had tea salad though. That's new to me. He's like eating all that. Is he eating all that? Bro, he's like none for the crew. You guys don't get shit. Nah, bro. He ain't sharing with the crew.
You get a different character of the tea. You know, in the traditional Lepetok, it's going to be more sour. You know, in this one,
I don't. Okay, chat. Look, listen. My one pet peeve with like IRL content and like like travel stuff. My one pet peeve is like if you're having food segments and you don't like film like you eating with the crew and stuff, or like ask the crew to join you, or like make the crew part of the content. If you don't do that, that's a bit I don't feel right. You know what I mean? I feel like everybody needs to be in the video. I feel like that makes for a better video, and that just makes for a better crew. It just makes for a better time. You know what I mean? Do you guys agree or disagree? What do you guys think? Do you guys agree or disagree?
Get the sweetness.
I feel like it just makes for a better time, chat.
The tea leaves. It's such a great ingredient. I don't know why this isn't something that has, in 10 years, you'll be able to get this at every grocery store. I'm positive. It's such a fun ingredient.
What?
You know, it's healthy, it's absolutely delicious, and it doesn't taste like anything else. So, to me, it's just, there are these things like the sataw, here in Thailand. There are these things that are just oversights that, for whatever reason, got missed during the, the years of everything kind of going back and forth. But that's going to change, and to me, fermented tea leaves, I like tea as a drink. I love tea as a food.
Oh, okay. I see.
The first evidence of tea in China, the actual tea plant, not just tu, shows up in the tomb of the Han Dynasty Emperor Liu Qi, built around 141 BC. It was presented in the mausoleum as a valuable item, most likely brought back during the raids and invasions the Han had begun of the Yunnan Mountains. Within 30 years of the tomb's construction, Yunnan would be annexed, and the Chinese would begin tea cultivation closer to the capital, in what's now Sichuan province. But at least in the beginning, it was still viewed as a source of food. The reason there's so much confusion about the legend of Shennong is that starting in the 1st century BC, well, tea would become a popular version of tu, or medicinal herbs.
Okay.
And those herbs were being used in dishes like zhou or congee. Tu was
Congee.
as a popular breakfast.
Man, porridge,
Ginger
man.
and shallot
Can't go wrong with porridge,
rice,
chat.
and turned into a soup of a whole bunch of stuff mashed
Oh, it's
together.
in the
But
soup
again,
too?
all we can really do is speculate until the 7th century AD, when the Tang Dynasty would introduce a new vocabulary, and tea would finally get its own character. It would be a slight adaptation of tu with just a single minor difference. In its pronunciation, cha would most likely be influenced by la, the original word in Yunnan. In the beginning, the new character would represent the tea plant, just one of China's many medicinal herbs. But it wouldn't be long before cha was to become the centerpiece of
So it started off as like very medicinal properties, and then it became like, a delicacy. Is what I'm getting from this.
new Chinese society.
Okay. Fair enough.
Around the 1st century AD, a splinter branch of Buddhism was taking shape in India. It would be called Mahayana, and it was based around the concept of bodhisattvas, basically delaying enlightenment to help others here on Earth. Now, by that point, traditional Buddhism, or Theravada, had already spread across the subcontinent and throughout Southeast Asia, and there wasn't much interest in this new interpretation.
Okay, we're following
But
the
Mahayana
religious side.
missionaries saw potential in China and began translating their writings into Chinese, starting in the years of the Han Dynasty. When the empire fell in 220 AD and China collapsed into a period of instability, Indian Buddhists built monasteries catering to the poor and the hungry. And scholars of Taoism and the writings of Confucius, well, they began to theorize about how it could all work together, Buddhism and traditional Chinese beliefs and practices. This hybrid religion, a Chinese adaptation of the Buddhist faith, would explode into the mainstream in the 7th century when the Tang Dynasty brought it to the masses.
Okay.
And perhaps more than any other single event in Chinese history, this almost overnight would change the country's cuisine and diet. In the original teachings of Mahayana Buddhism, to be the best human one can be, no harm should come to any other creature. Hence the need to follow a vegan diet.
Okay.
Suddenly, monks and devout followers needed to find a replacement for fish sauce used in almost everything. Hence the
Damn, everybody using fish sauce? So that's how soy sauce was invented.
of a soy-based alternative.
Oh.
With no meat allowed for consumption, while temples would serve tofu, and monks would invent a new option made from wheat gluten and today called seitan. And it wasn't just animal products that were outlawed. Because of its propensity to cause fights and conflicts, alcohol was forbidden, and this caused quite a problem. See, rice liquor was more than just a drink in early China. It was a way of life, something you'd share with friends and family, and the foundation
Damn,
of social
drink is a way of
interactions. And
life.
with that
That's
now on
great.
the chopping block, well, something else would need to take its place. And that something, well, it would show up in the unlikeliest of ways. Around the year 740, just as Buddhism was sweeping across China, one monastery in Hubei took in an orphan boy named Lu Yu and allowed him a place to sleep in exchange for helping out with daily tasks. Among his responsibilities was cooking the monk's daily meal, a humble gruel of onions, jujubes, ginger, and tea. Now, I don't know how good or bad this tasted, but we can get a pretty good clue from the fact that this poor starving orphan wouldn't even touch it. In his words, it tasted like ditch water. Anyway, maybe it was because of the
Ooh.
food, or maybe Lu Yu
That's
was
an
just a
insult
rolling
right there.
stone, but soon enough, he'd flee the monastery and set out on a Tom Sawyer-like adventure, joining a traveling theater troupe and then becoming a circus clown, performing
What?
for food or money all across the farthest reaches of the empire. Somewhere, probably around the highlands of Sichuan, he'd encountered
This is an insane story.
again, and was shocked to find that when it was prepared by the humblest farmers, made with nothing other than tea boiled in water, well, it was something extraordinary. So entranced was Lu Yu that for the next 30 years, well, he'd devote himself to learning everything he could about the tea plant. In the end, he'd take everything he learned and write a manuscript called the Chajing, or the Classic of Tea.
The classic
It would
of tea.
describe in 10
Damn.
chapters everything from the legend of Shennong to the subtleties of tea flavor to the
I
best
didn't even know there was like a legendary tea text. That's insane.
way to make the drink at home. In his view, grinding the tea leaves into a powder, then stirring it into boiling water. He would also explain why, in his opinion, tea was the consummate drink for Buddhists. It was ascetic and unpretentious. Every step from cultivation to preservation and preparation took time and dedicated focus, and its consumption should be shared among groups of people. In other words, making this a perfect alternative to the evil alcohol. The Classic of Tea would get the attention of not just Buddhist society, but the Chinese emperor, who
Oh.
promoted the work far and wide. Almost overnight, tea shops appeared all across China, and Lu Yu would become known as a god, the god of tea, even while he was still alive.
Damn,
By the
okay.
way, even now, if you visit a Chinese tea shop, you'll probably find a statue or figurine of Lu Yu on display on the counter. Within
Damn.
a generation, tea was now right in the middle of Chinese
He was the one, chat.
culture. And it wasn't just a beverage, it would become a way of life, inspired by Lu Yu's writing and the new influence of Buddhist philosophy.
You see, this is what I'm interested in. Like, how did it become like more than just a drink? How did it become like a ceremony and stuff?
It would be served as part of a ceremony called Jiancha, a deeply spiritual exercise of making, serving, and consuming tea that even now is intrinsic to life in the country. Tea culture would change forever. The drink would enter the national mainstream, and for us, well, finally, we have an excuse for our first cup of tea.
Oh. Okay, okay. Tea break 2, the ceremony. Okay. The tea ceremony. Oh, yeah, that's traditional. Yep. There we go. You got the pot.
The tea is feel like a culture. You can see anything from tea. Sometimes you drink one cup of tea, you can see like how do people live, how they do, what is the everyday for them. Like when you drink for example, like the 蒸散小种, the smoked one, you can see what they want to make the pine woods, because in that area only the pine woods, something like that. And More than that is people, When I go to there, like the tea plantation, wow, very nice people, very nice ambience, very nice weather, everything is good.
Okay. It's an experience. It brings you back. Okay. I see. Man, just watching the leaves do that, that's so... Ooh, it's so rewarding. You know what I mean?
Years ever since opening his first business, Kun Saran has been putting together what might be Bangkok's best collection of rare Chinese teas. For our visit, we've chosen the green tea from a family farm in Sichuan province, and then later we're gonna switch to an incredible 20-year aged pu'er, hand-carried back from the mountains where everything began. But we'll get there later because the whole point of the Chinese tea ceremony is not to rush.
It's about taking your time, Chad. It's about taking your time with the tea. Okay. I think I've had those dried up ones before. Once. A long time ago. I was staying at a B&B, and then me and my friend, we were staying at a B&B, and the B&B host, like, he would pop in every now and then because, like, I mean, it wasn't like a full unit kind of B&B. It was like just shared rooms. So me and my friend got a room, and then beside us was all like rooms that other people would get. So when we went down to the hall, the owner was there and he offered us like this type of tea. And he was explaining to us about tea, like how to make it, the process, everything, where he sourced his from, all of that. And honestly, it felt like a vibe because we had our own little ceremony, you know what I mean? It felt like a vibe, Chad. And the guy was so nice. Shout out to him, man. Shout out to him. He was so nice. But yeah, it was an experience. I think if you haven't had that before, I think you should go try it.
This is cool for me. It's been like, I'm gonna have to be careful how much caffeine I'm taking in today because we have a lot of tea to drink. But man, this brings me, I was in China for 12 years and first of all, the tea itself. So Sanran, who owns this place, was telling us that he just came back from China and he'll go back to go find the best tea and bring it with him here. And so this is all hand carried into Thailand, which is amazing. But also just this culture of not rushing. We've been here now for 45 minutes and it doesn't feel like it. And we could spend the entire afternoon sitting here just having a conversation and, just it kind of forces you to, you can see how there's that connection to Buddhism in tea. It forces you to relax and to not rush and just
right.
to
Yeah.
To sit here and talk to people for a long time and it's very serene, It's also really good tea.
I'm just entranced by watching this chat. I'm in a hypnosis state. What was that? Damn.
ซึ่งป้านจือเนี่ยมันดินมันจะมีความแบบว่า porosity หรือรูพุนมากกว่าเพราะฉะนั้นมันเป็นป้านที่ไม่ได้ดึงเรื่องกลิ่นมากนักนะฮะเพราะฉะนั้นมันเหมาะสำหรับการชงชาที่บอดี้เยอะๆหน่อยก็เลยเลือกที่เหมาะกับพวกผูแล้วใบนี้ผมก็ชงผูสุกเป็นหลักเนาะใช่
โอเค
แล้วก็ชาผูเนี่ยเป็นชาที่บางทีเราก็ต้องล้างน้ำแรกทิ้งนะครับเพราะว่ามันเป็นชาที่มีความเก่าเนาะแล้วบางทีอาจจะมีฝุ่นมีคราบอะไรเงี้ยความสบายใจได้
Oh, so that's all for sterilization. Okay.
ชาเขียวเนี่ยมันทำแบบ process แบบสะอาดมากนะในปัจจุบันแล้วก็มันชงได้น้อยกว่าชาพวกนี้เยอะพวกนี้มันอาจจะชงได้ประมาณ20กว่าครั้งเลยนะครับ
It's like espresso tea, man. It's like espresso tea. I didn't even know they had like espresso tea. I don't know. I get that it's for sterilization purposes, but it just looks so clean though. It looks so clean though, Chad.
By the end of the 8th century, just a few years after Lu Yu's book would enter publication, well, tea would spread east along with Buddhist monks into Korea and Japan. And it wasn't just tea that would quickly become a part of those countries. It was the tea ceremony, in time taking on the characteristic of those other cultures. The Japanese tradition began when a monk named Eisai returned from a trip to China, having learned a new technique of planting with limited access to sunlight.
Okay.
This produced soft leaves that would be grinded raw into a powder, the introduction of what today we call
Damn.
matcha. And given that Eisai would also become the father of Japanese Zen Buddhism, which would heavily influence a group known as the samurai,
Oh.
soon enough the matcha tea ceremony
Did not know
would replace
that.
the Chinese one throughout Japanese society.
Hi.
It's called the cha do, or the way of tea, and when done right, it's nearly an all-day event. Starting with a bowl of hot water or kombucha.
Oh yeah, I heard it's like. Oh wait, sorry. I heard it's like it takes like what 8 hours to properly brew everything in Japan for like the brewing of the tea and stuff.
Proceeding to a ritual purification. Guests would then be served a delicate meal of many courses, and only after this would the tea itself begin, in 2 phases, with matcha made into a thick and thin.
I'm not kidding. I felt like somewhere it was like they were like it takes 8 hours, and I was like, what?
One paired not just with foods, but with flower arrangements, artwork, and tobacco. Now, while the Japanese cha do would reflect a culture of respect and tradition, the Korean dahlia is more about mindfulness and humility. A simple ritual of warming, measuring, brewing, and serving the drink, focusing not on ceremony, but on the basic natural gifts of fire, water, and tea leaves. This began as a form of offering, taking root in Buddhist temples of the 8th and 9th century. And as Korea and Japan adapted their own tea customs and began to create their own traditions, well, it stood to reason that eventually the Chinese origins would be cast aside and we see new myths and legends show up about tea.
Oh.
In the Japanese telling, the plant was discovered not by Shennong, but by a Buddhist monk named Bodhidharma, a mythical figure said to be the founder of Shaolin Kung Fu. Anyway, in this story,
They made a Tamil movie about that guy,
a mythical
Bodhidharma.
figure said to
So that's how I know. Great movie, great action movie.
be the founder of Shaolin Kung
I forgot what it was called.
Anyway, in this story,
I would tell you guys, but I
Bodhidharma
forgot
spent
what it
7
was
years
called.
Sitting in meditation, when finally he
The
was
Tamil
overcome
movie.
with exhaustion and found
The Indian
himself
movie.
falling asleep. In a last attempt to stay awake to achieve enlightenment, and I'm not going to accompany this with photos, but he sliced off his own eyelids so that his eyes couldn't
What?
close, then threw them onto the ground where they sprouted into tea trees.
Oh
Like magic, the
my
trees grew
God.
leaves, and the Bodhidharma picked some off and started to chew.
Yo,
Energized from the caffeine, he would finish his meditation.
That
achieve
ain't right.
enlightenment, And then introduce the world to tea, planting the first trees himself in Japan. As far as the Korean story would go, well, it begins with the founding of civilization, at least in the local telling. In the beginning, there was a golden bowl that descended from heaven, holding 6 eggs, which would hatch into 6 princes. The firstborn
Okay.
chief among them was named Suro, and he would go on to be a beloved king and a hero of early Korea. When he was old enough to marry, he'd court a princess from a faraway land, the beautiful Hyo Hwang-ok. And as a dowry, her emperor father would send a boat packed with the greatest bounty of the
Ooh.
planet, including the seeds of the tea plant. The century after the introduction of Buddhism to Japan and Korea is viewed as the height of China's soft power, a golden age of progress throughout the region and the so-called romantic era of tea, when the drink became intertwined with everything from religion to culture to diplomacy. But while this was happening, well, thousands of miles to the west on China's opposite border, well, tea was becoming intertwined with something else, something that would have an even bigger impact on the rest of this story. And this, well, it brings us high into the Himalayas, where for the first time, tea would become a commercial product.
Oh, the commercialization of tea. Alright, let's see. Yeah. Hey,
In the 11th
yeah.
century AD,
Give me
the
that
new
tea.
Chinese
Give me that
Song
tea. I want that
dynasty
tea.
became
I want that tea. Give me that tea. Give me that tea. I want that tea. Yeah. Hey, yeah.
nervous about an increase in raids from the north. Tribes of Mongols were invading deeper and deeper on horseback, and without a cavalry of their own, the Chinese military was in danger of being completely overrun. So the Emperor Shenzong sent emissaries deep into the Himalayas. Now, this was a time when the mountain kingdoms were thriving, cultural and military powers hidden behind the world's most imposing landscape, the Khasa of what's now Western Nepal, the Bumthang of Bhutan, and of course, the mighty Tibetans, who ruled from the holy city of Lhasa. The ambassadors from China spread the word they needed horses and were willing to trade anything, the finest silks, jade, or gold. But there was only one product coveted by the people of the High Plateau, and so a contract was drawn up in 1074 that every 60 kilos of tea sent from China would be paid for with one single horse. And within a century, 25,000 horses and 1.5 million kilograms of tea were changing hands every year along what we now call the Tea Horse Road. Now, tea was not unfamiliar to the highland people. As far back as the 2nd century AD, we find archaeological evidence of tea in Tibet, boiled and mixed with salt and yak butter, exactly the same way it's consumed today. It was hearty, warming, and revitalizing for the people of the cold and hostile region, and would be a valuable commodity.
Oh, just when they started adding milk and stuff and butter.
In fact, to this day,
Butter
the
tea.
Yunnan province built as waypoints for the ancient Tibetan tea trade. But with the establishment of the route to Sichuan, tea was now affordable and essential to the high mountain kingdoms, and it very much remains that way to the present. The Tea Horse Road would completely transform the culture of the Himalayas. Yak butter tea would become central to life and hospitality. Monasteries and entire cities would be built along the path leading from China. And just like in Japan and Korea, tea would enter local mythology, with the most common story crediting the plant to Songtsen Gampo, the founder of the Tibetan Empire and the spiritual ancestor of all Dalai Lamas. Now, from a Chinese perspective, the Tea Horse Road was a failure. Even with all the new horses, the Mongols ran roughshod over China, and by 1271, Kublai Khan was sitting on the throne in Beijing. But by that time, Chinese tea served in the Himalayan palaces had caught the attention of the neighboring states, in Central Asia and India. And before long, well, it would become a sought-after commodity. And since this story's about to get rough, well, let's load up on some yak butter tea.
Okay. Yak butter tea. Let's go.
In the Himalayan mountains, yak butter
Man, the
tea
culture is so rich, chat. The culture is so
is a
rich.
tradition, not just for socialization, but also survival. But this is not the Himalayas, this is downtown Bangkok. And trying to drink here is not exactly the same as if we were freezing at 3,000 meters elevation. But at least the air conditioning's on.
Oh,
For the last 2 years, Bhutan Kitchen has been the country's only venue showcasing the food and drinks of the reclusive kingdom, wedged between China and India. It's a place I know very little about, so as a guide, we've invited our friend Payman, who grew up drinking tea in Bhutan's rural north.
wait, his name is Paimon?
Yeah, boiling
His name is Paimon? Yo, Paimon confirmed, chat. Paimon confirmed. It took me a second to process.
tea and water right here, and he gonna pour it in this container, and then yeah, butter tea, yeah.
we're watching him
Yeah.
it all.
Okay. Pouring the tea out. Okay, he got that modern tech.
And this butter is already
Yeah. No, it's a pure butter, no salt. So then he gonna put salt. Actually, for to make the the real one, they use chengni, yeah, to mix the butter and tea. Yeah. So this is modern style of making butter tea.
Right, they churn it by hand. Right, they churn it by hand. That makes sense. Oh, it's got it. It looks like kind of like mocha, but with butter. It looks like butter mocha. Okay, that's kind of sick. You got that butter mocha.
As if I have not had enough caffeine from our last stop, let's just chase that with another tea. So in the, to me, I'm fascinated by Himalayan food. In Nepal, there's a lot of Indian influence. In Tibet, there's a lot of Chinese influence. In Bhutan, you get some old school Himalayan food, and that also includes tea.
Yeah.
Pema, good friend from Bhutan. Where are you from?
Thank you. I'm from Bhutan, but it's a northern part of Bhutan. It's known as Ha. Yeah, I'm from that part of side. So mostly people they drink little bit different kind of tea around there. Yeah.
This is a little bit more elegant than what you'd find there.
Yeah, it's more elegant.
In my
Okay.
experience, it's going to be a little bit thicker in the mountains. I've never been to Bhutan, but I have been to the Himalayas before. This looks easy to drink. Sometimes yak butter tea is not so easy to drink for a
Yeah.
foreigner.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, because it's like more buttery and the savory
Salty.
from the salt. Yeah, salty. So it's the people, the foreigner find it a little bit difficult to drink it. Yeah.
Try this one.
I should try this before we continue talking.
Then give it to me.
Ooh, I want to try it now.
Oh, but the flavor. No, it's quite savory.
Thumbs
It
up for
tastes like
foreigners?
melted butter, tea, and salt.
Okay, okay. She makes me want to drink some. Makes me want to drink some, Chad. Not gonna lie.
Do you share tea? What's this?
It's known as zao. It's
Ugh, excuse me.
Z-A-W zao. So it's mainly made from rice. They cook the rice first, and then they will like fry and make it like this. It's like a snack in Bhutan. Yeah.
And you eat this
Yeah.
with
yeah,
tea, or
you eat it just. You can eat it like this.
Yep.
Yeah, directly. Yeah,
Thank you.
Mhm.
and go some with your tea.
I like it.
But mostly in Bhutan, we just put it inside our own tea. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Tea, yeah, cup like that. So if you soak for a little bit, it will become what do you call soft? Yeah, it will become a little bit soft.
Okay, okay. Damn, they got the food too. My God, that looks good, Chad. That looks so good.
All right, now when the Chinese traders were crossing the Himalayas on the Tea Horse Road, well, what they were bringing in their heavy packs was tea made into cakes, producing an intense and not subtle tea like what we just tried. Those cakes and by extension tea were barely recognizable compared to what we all know today. They
Okay.
were made by putting tea leaves through a cycle of steaming and drying and then compressing everything into a dense brick of up to 2.5 kilos in weight. But as tea grew in importance and became a part of Song Dynasty social structure, we see the emergence of different tastes. Farmers and producers started perfecting new methods, and by the time the Ming Dynasty banned brick tea completely, well, a whole new category had taken shape.
Ooh. Okay, what was that? I want to see when it became like westernized.
The first step
Like
in
the
the
Western
tea-making
tea.
process is harvesting the leaves from the tea plant. After that, well, the methods diverge, and by the 14th century, we see a few main styles of tea gain popularity, and it would be these variations that soon enough would conquer the world. Now, the primary difference would involve oxidation. See, just like stuff like apples and avocados, as soon as tea leaves are plucked from the tree, well, they start to brown, and their chemical composition changes.
Ooh, okay,
When tea
okay.
leaves were harvested, then allowed to fully oxidize before drying, well, the result would be what we refer to as black tea, or Chinese
Ah.
Hongcha, or red tea. This would have the richest profile in tannins and the strongest and most pungent flavor, which is why over the years it would become the base for big foreign flavors, standing up to ingredients like condensed milk, sugar, spices, and even fruit preserves.
Right, okay, that
It's
makes
black
sense.
tea that's today used in bubble tea, Indian masala chai, and Malaysian tea tariq.
Hey,
These
shout
will
out.
oxidize partially and then be cooked
What did he
in
say?
Malaysian tea tariq.
Bro, that's not how you say it. It's te tare. Bro. Come on, gang. Come on, gang.
When tea leaves would oxidize partially and then be cooked to dry out before becoming completely dark, well, that would be called oolong, named for Wulong, or the mythical black dragon, allegedly inspired by how the tea leaves look when ideally processed. This is the most painstaking tea to make, involving cycles of rolling, drying, and roasting to develop the best flavor, and until the 19th century, well, it was only meant for royalty, the tea of the Forbidden City. If tea leaves are harvested, withered, and then immediately cooked before oxidation, well, that results in green tea. In Japanese
Ooh.
culture, it's cooked by steaming.
Wait,
to
what?
create
How do you do it
Forbidden
again?
City. If tea leaves are harvested, withered, and then immediately cooked before oxidation, well, that results in green tea.
Oh.
In Japanese culture, it's cooked by steaming, presenting the brightest green color. Chinese green tea is made by pan-firing, which develops a smoother flavor. Regardless, green tea is the healthiest of the tea varietals, preserves the most polyphenols and antioxidants, and it also has the freshest and most vegetal flavor, hence its use in the food world in stuff like ice creams. White
Right.
tea involves no processing at all. It's just tea. Usually the youngest and softest leaves picked and then allowed to sun or air dry naturally. It's called white tea because without any steaming or baking, the leaves retain their fine white hairs. The most exclusive variety of white tea is made without leaves at all, just the unopened buds of the tea plant. This is what's called silver needle. And finally, there's pu'er tea, named for the region where tea first began, and just like the original teas of Yunnan, it's fermented, aged for as long as 50 years before being
Wow,
made into a drink,
50
not
years.
salad like the old days. The Ming Dynasty policy
I like how his
of
drinks
low-quality
change, too.
cake tea would give rise to the variations that would one day become famous around the world, but it would also have another unintentional effect. With the country all of a sudden shifting to consuming loose-leaf tea, well, new equipment would be needed to make it at home. In the past, all you'd do would be break off a part of a tea brick, grind it into a powder, and then stir it into boiling water. But now, well, with customers falling in love with the delicate flavors of their favorite styles, every household would need a dedicated teapot to steep the leaves. Over time, this teapot and eventually entire tea sets would become fashionable items, collection pieces, and works of art, giving us the priceless category of what we now call Ming Dynasty pottery.
These are some beautiful
Anyway,
pottery, chat.
let's
I'm not
get
gonna
back
lie.
to the story.
If I could collect, I would. I would collect 100%. I like
As the
artisan
world
pieces
entered
like
a
that.
new era of trade and exploration,
Oh,
while
God.
tea was only cultivated in 4 countries. In Myanmar, it was still viewed as a source of food and typically pickled and fermented.
Okay.
Not a product seen by Europeans as having any value. That left just China, Japan, and Korea, but by the start of the 1600s, the Tokugawa shogunate and the Joseon dynasty would shut down trade in 2 of those 3 countries, which meant that China was the only nation on Earth to offer high-quality tea on the export market. But that doesn't mean there were any buyers. The first reference by any European to the product was from Giovanni Ramusio, who in 1555 mentions a drink called chai katai, though we only heard of it secondhand from a Persian merchant who had visited China. The Portuguese write of cha after colonizing Macau, but didn't seem to find appeal in what they described as simply water boiled with some kind of herb. And maybe the funniest encounter came when a Russian diplomat was presented with 100 kilograms of tea as a gift for Tsar Mikhail I. But the diplomat couldn't understand why anybody needed so many dead leaves and rejected the gift. It wasn't until the year 1610 when we see any record of foreigners actually tasting the stuff, a manifest of a Dutch trading boat that picked up a single package of Japanese tea in Macau, transited through Java, and finally delivered it to Amsterdam, giving Europe its first ever taste of tea.
So that's
next
how it
half-century,
happened.
the only Western-
Some guy took a chance. He took a chance and was like, huh, let me try this drink out.
Buyers of tea would be the Portuguese from Macau and the Dutch from mainland China, who bought shipments of it not because they wanted the stuff, but because they found a huge market for these, and sold tea as a novelty alongside Ming Dynasty ceramics. As for the Portuguese, well, the tea they bought in Macau was so expensive that it would only be served in the royal palace, not as a consumer good. And in the 50 years the Dutch controlled the Chinese tea trade, well, they would do nothing to actually push the product, and their only lasting legacy would be the name tea. Now, contrary to popular belief, this was not a Dutch invention or some Western misunderstanding. In the past, all of the tea China had ever sold had been delivered by land or by northern ports in the Mandarin-speaking part of the country.
Oh.
This is why across Eastern Asia, the Himalayas, and Mongolia, the drink would take the name cha, or some variation like ja or chai. But the Dutch were the first to buy their tea from Hokkien traders along the southern coast. And in
Oh.
the dialect of Fujian, well, the exact same character is pronounced te. It's the same exact word from the same exact country, just essentially spoken with a different accent. And for the rest of Canada,
It was
it's not connected
mispronounced.
entirely to whether it first arrived
And
by
that's
land
how it's
or
called
water.
tea.
If it would be introduced by the Dutch, English, or Hokkien traders, it's tea. If it came overland from China or was sold via Japan, Korea, or Portugal, it would be cha or chai. Of course, there is one country that's an exception to this rule, the only country on earth to which this doesn't apply. And of course, that's Myanmar, where it's called lapet, descended from La, the original 6,000-year-old name for tea that's still used in the Yunnan Mountains. Anyway, whatever the name
Okay,
is,
that's
it was
interesting.
about to explode onto the global scene. And when it did, well, it would leave a trail of destruction that would change the course of history.
Ooh. The English. Here we go.
The
Here
first
we go.
record of tea in England comes in 1657, when a man named Thomas Garway bought a few kilos from a Dutch trader and started selling from his house on London's Exchange Alley. He'd bring this new product to a coffee shop he'd opened that same year, and thus tea was officially introduced to the English population. But what would truly bring it to the mainstream was 5 years later, when King Charles II was set to marry the daughter of the King of Portugal. For the wedding, the new queen requested that her favorite drink be served to all the guests.
Tea?
And that, of course, was tea, well known, as we mentioned, in the Portuguese royal palace. Anyway, once on the throne, Catherine of Braganza would not just popularize tea among English nobles, but she even instituted a daily tea time, a practice that remains essential almost 400 years later. Now, in the beginning, Catherine's tea had to be purchased from the Dutch, as they were the only ones sending the stuff to Europe. But Catherine and Charles would quickly sign a contract granting the East India Company a monopoly on tea exports to English holdings.
The East India Company. God damn.
And things would go sideways. In 1664, just 2 years after the wedding, the first British shipment would arrive in London of 100 pounds of tea.
These guys,
2
man,
decades
Chad.
later,
These
demand
guys.
had increased to 12,000 pounds, and by the end of the century, tea was being sold along with sugar. See our last video for that story. But basically, this was England's new favorite drink. Tea lightly sweetened and served with those pastries and snacks that were just beginning to enter the culinary landscape. And altogether, well, by 1750, it was now 5 million pounds of tea each year coming in from China.
Damn.
Now, because the East India Company had a monopoly, their profits would skyrocket. But without competition, they'd charge a fortune for the product.
Oof.
Customers were unhappy, tea shops were losing money, and this created an opening for smugglers to undercut the official price. In the 18th century, tea smuggling to England was quite an enterprise. Buyers would purchase cheap tea from the Dutch in Java, deliver it to meeting points off the English coast where the tea would then be transferred onto fishing boats, then repacked inside everything from loaves of bread to Bibles. And it would be
What?
this
To Bibles too?
smuggled tea that would soon come to dominate the English market. Now, for the East India Company, this would create two big problems. First, they lost a major source of revenue, and second, well, nobody wanted to buy their overpriced tea. So with a massive surplus and profits falling, the company asked the Crown for the exclusive rights to sell to the colonies in America, who had previously bought tea from the Dutch. And to recover some of their losses, they added in a sales tax of 3 pence per pound. A tax, by the way, on a population who had no representation in British Parliament. This did not go over well, and so on December 16, 1773, a few hundred colonists disguised themselves as Native Americans, snuck onto East India Company ships docked in Boston Harbor, and threw an estimated 92,000 pounds of tea into the water. 1.7 million.
The Boston
worth
Tea
of
Party.
product in today's money. The event would come to be known as the Boston Tea Party, and to this day,
Boston.
well, every single kid who grows up in America learns about this as the trigger for the War of Independence. Anyway, let's take a break for some afternoon tea.
Hell yeah. Oh, we're actually having tea? Yo. Tea time. Tea time. Ooh, very regal. Very regal. Okay. Oh, they got a little tray and shit. Do you guys like high tea like this?
All right. I don't think we're supposed to cheers in proper
With your pinky out?
proper tea house culture. Pinky out.
My fingers are too fat for those cups.
Damn.
It's probably an
He
urban
probably
legend.
laughed too hard at that. He laughed too hard
There's
at
a
that.
story that around 1840,
He's gonna get some
Anna
shit for
Russell,
that.
the Duchess of Bedford, found herself becoming faint in the mid-afternoon, because in the old days, well, dinner wasn't served until late. So she started snacking, washing down some cakes and scones with a cup of tea. Soon enough, she started dispatching her guards to deliver notes around London, inviting other high society women to join her for some secret afternoon indulging. Soon enough, this would spread throughout the upper class, and thus was born tea time. If you're not raised in the culture, it can be a little bit confusing. I remember as a kid, the first time I ever was taken out for something like this, I remember thinking, why can't I just have a big sandwich? Why do I get a small
Why is
sandwich?
everybody 70-year-old around?
And why is it so expensive? I don't know that I thought that as a small child, but I'm pretty sure that's what my parents were thinking. We have sandwiches,
Scones?
scones, which was also very confusing to me as a small child.
Because it's just
It's a
brick
scone.
of bread.
I'm not trying to.
I love scones, chat. I love scones. I love scones. You got a good slab of butter, a little bit of honey. Ooh,
Trying to be
amazing.
overly critical here.
Amazing, chat.
But
Amazing.
As I have grown up, it's nice, and we're sitting out here in this beautiful garden. You know,
British food. British.
pretending.
Oh, hell no. She did the thing.
Audio.
He's like, oh my god, we have to cut that out.
That, like, this is good, but nothing beats the ham and biscuit brick of brackle with beans. My mom makes.
In the
Okay.
aftermath of the American Revolution, with no other customers and tons of excess tea on hand, the English Parliament had no choice but to cut taxes. And by 1784, the price of tea had fallen so low that smuggling was put out of business, and the East India Company regained its monopoly on territory still belonging to the crown. But there was a new problem, which was how to pay for all that tea. See, ever since the Ming Dynasty had given up on paper currency, China's economy depended on silver, and silver was the only payment accepted for tea. Or for
What?
that
Silver?
matter,
Oh my
silk or
God.
porcelain or anything else the Chinese sent abroad. But the
Huge
British got used to their
skyrocket.
silver from the New World, and with the American colony now lost, well, this created a massive problem. English merchants tried to find anything else the Chinese would be willing to barter for, but this was rejected. And as demand for tea increased, well, so too did the trade imbalance, and the United Kingdom was running out of silver. So the East India Company decided to bypass official channels and get into the smuggling business themselves.
Oh
They
my
sent
god.
scouts into China to find tea growers or sellers willing to play ball, and in exchange, well, they would deliver them loads of opium.
Oh, hell nah. Oh, hell nah. This is how they control people, chat. With drugs. This is how they control you.
Colonial India. The tea for opium trade would be a massive boon to England, and
Oh,
since it was
hell
essentially
no.
free, cultivated by forced Indian labor, well, the trade imbalance was reversed. Money started pouring in, and with as much as 10% of the Chinese population now addicted to the drug, well, the good times were rolling back in Victorian England.
God damn,
The
man.
Chinese
They
government
screwed these guys over, chat.
This turn of events.
They
And
screwed
so in
these guys over.
1839, the Qing Emperor sent a battalion south to create a maritime blockade. They raided British ships arriving in Guangzhou Harbor and confiscated more than 1,400 tons of opium, and then they destroyed it all in public to show that they meant business. Now, until this point, the opium trade had been unofficial. But in response to the situation, the Crown sent the Royal Navy to southern China, where for 3 years the British decimated the Chinese military. And finally, in 1842, China was forced to sign the Treaty of Nanjing, giving full immunity to all British on Chinese soil, accepting new non-silver-based terms for trade and, just for fun, granting England the rights to Hong Kong Island. So thanks to the Opium War, England had its tea. But there was still one major problem, which was that the Chinese hated the British.
Oh
and his
shit!
eyes to just about
He
everyone.
dropped the bomb.
This would not be a permanent solution. The only way to actually control the
Damn!
price and
I
supply
did
was
not
to
expect
grow the
that.
tea themselves instead of depending on a foreign country for export. Now, on one hand, this didn't seem crazy. Just a few years earlier, a Scottish arms dealer and mercenary soldier named Robert Bruce, because history is ridiculous, so of course that's
Robert
his name.
Bruce.
Anyway, he'd been wandering through
Right,
the
that
mountains
sounds
of
familiar.
Assam,
He
India,
sounded
when
familiar.
He noticed tea growing wild. As a matter of fact, even though he didn't realize it, this tea had been there for thousands of years, just across the border from Myanmar and Yunnan, and related to the first plants ever cultivated. It was clear seeing the tea growing that this was the right kind of climate to build a large-scale plantation, but what the British didn't know was how to turn this into this. In fact, nobody knew, as the Chinese had kept their cultivation a secret for more than 1,000 years. Only Japan and Korea were also in on it, but again, both were closed to the outside world. Getting answers was going to take desperate measures, and that brings us to the most audacious and unlikely spy in
Oh.
agricultural history.
Who's that guy? He kind of stands out though. I don't know if he's a spy.
For the first 31 years of Robert Fortune's life, well, nothing much happened of great excitement. He'd grown up in a village in southeast Scotland, and with an interest in plants and botany, he'd worked as a caretaker for a wealthy family, then for the Edinburgh Botanical Gardens. But in 1844, with the Opium War over and England now permitted access to China, well, Mr. Fortune received a letter offering him a 3-year mission to sail to Hong Kong, cross into the mainland, and collect samples of exotic plants for the royal palace. But this trip would not go as intended. In the aftermath of the war, tensions were high, and even though he was just a horticulturalist, Fortune found himself attacked by soldiers, kidnapped by gangsters, and constantly under suspicion, so he trained himself to blend in. He taught
Damn.
himself Mandarin, began to dress in Chinese clothing, and returned in 1847 as something of a hero, publishing his memoirs to great local fanfare. Among those who read the book were executives with the East India Company who realized this might be the answer to their Assam dilemma. So they offered Fortune, well, a fortune, to go back to China undercover and steal for them the secrets of tea. And that's exactly what he would do. Along with his assistant Wang, beginning in 1848, a disguised Fortune traveled across China's forbidden interior, visiting tea plantations in Fujian, Zhejiang, and Sichuan,
Damn.
posing as a Chinese dignitary from a far-off province. And 3
Oh,
years
nah.
later, he get off a boat in Calcutta bringing seeds, trimmings, and the knowledge of exactly how to make the world's best tea. Now, this was not all that Fortune stole from China. While he'd been in
That's
the country,
insane,
he
the
learned
fact that
in
he
the
did
export
that.
market, the Chinese had a secret, which was that they were adding small amounts of both gypsum and cyanide to preserve the green
What?
color in the highest price.
Cyanide?
In other words, Chinese tea was actually poison. Mr. Fortune managed to bring proof of these chemicals back to London, where they were displayed with great prominence at the first ever World's Fair. And suddenly, not only did England have a domestic source of tea, but China was disgraced. And all at once, no one anywhere wanted anything to do with Chinese tea.
Damn.
And this meant Indian tea production would need to scale up, and fast.
Dang, chat.
All right, now before the British arrived, tea was not unknown in India. The mountains where those ancient tea plants grew, well, that was the home to the Singpo tribe, related to Yunnan's Jingpo and Myanmar's Kachin. And just like those other groups, the Singpo utilized tea by fermenting in bamboo and consuming it as a food.
Oh.
And since at least the 12th century,
So these guys
tea was
also
used as a drink
consumed
in
it like a
royal
food.
houses, introduced by way of Tibet along the Silk Road. This is, of course, why it's known as chai and not tea. But that was imported, and other than the hills of the Singpo, well, tea was never farmed in India until the 19th century. But that would change quickly. In just the first 6 years after the introduction of Chinese technology, 750,000 workers would be conscripted for the new plantations in Assam, Darjeeling, and Tamil Nadu in the coastal south. Now, these workers were what's called indentured servants, not slaves. That practice by now was technically outlawed, but it was close enough. Each worker would sign up for a 5 to 7 year term in exchange for money, along with room and board. But fine print usually said that room and board would be deducted from pay, and that left close to nothing. Anyway, between the new tea plantations, the rush to cultivate sugar, and the other British abuses, in 1857, Indian workers rose up in rebellion. 6,000 colonists were killed, mostly women and children.
Damn.
The British responded by annihilating Delhi and Lucknow, massacring 800,000
I mean-
Indians, and in the aftermath, annexing India into the empire as an official colony. By
God damn, man.
1871, there were 300
The colonization was
Indians,
insane for
5,000
everybody. Oh my
tons of
God.
product. A
The
number that would increase to
atrocities,
35,000
the
tons
stealing of culture, stealing of resources and stuff. Oh my God.
by 1885.
Horrible.
And in 1900, it was astronomically higher. 70,000 tons exported to the United Kingdom alone, and countless more to buyers around the world. And it wasn't just India. In 1867, a blight wiped out the coffee industry in Sri Lanka. So a man named James Taylor, no, not that one,
Yo,
decided to try introducing tea.
how
In the
many
beginning,
James
his
Taylors
operation
were
was
there?
small until he'd take on investment from a Glaswegian playboy and amateur yachtsman named Thomas Lipton. Yes, that one. And soon enough, Ceylon teas were
He's
everywhere.
the guy. Thomas Lipton.
With the financial success of the colonial plantations, the British would begin planting tea across the rest of the Crown holdings, starting in East Africa with Malawi, then Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya. Before long, other European colonial powers got in on the action as well. The French establishing farms in Vietnam starting in the 1880s, and the Dutch forcing thousands of Indonesians to grow tea across West Java. But it wasn't just Europeans exponentially growing the tea trade. In 1868, the Japanese began to reopen to the outside world, and the Meiji government would finance the country's revival through tea exports, mostly to Southeast Asia and the United States.
Damn,
And within a
okay.
few years of the cyanide fiasco, the Chinese had rehabilitated their own image and were not only back in the tea trade, but carrying tea from China to the West became a sport, a literal competition
sport?
with prizes granted to whoever built the fastest boats. The tea racing ships would be called clippers.
Tea racing. Okay, I never knew there was like tea racing. That's insane.
And this would be as popular for fans and gamblers as any modern pastime.
I feel like this should be a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure season. Like the tea racing. You know how like part 7 is like the racing? This should be like another season.
Although sadly it would end in 1869 with the opening of the Suez Canal. Today the main legacy of the tea clippers is a whiskey named Cutty Sark, after the greatest tea ship of them all.
The Cutty
Anyway,
Sark.
by the dawn of the 20th century, much of the world was now drinking tea. But ironically enough, one country that wasn't was India. The bitter black tea grown in Assam and Darjeeling never quite suited the local palate, and so the English wanted to find a way to grow their customer base. They tried pushing an ad campaign directed at factory workers, telling them that if their workers took tea breaks, well, they'd have more energy and thus would be more productive. Then around the 1930s, someone had the idea to combine this black tea with a traditional Indian herbal beverage, and thus was
Okay.
born masala chai.
Yay,
which
chai
would
tea.
eventually lead directly to sweet milk teas like tea Tariq, another global favorite.
Sala.
And since we're due for a break anyway, well, this feels like an excuse for us to swing by one of our favorite Bangkok
I love this tea, man, Chad. I love this tea. Masala tea is really, really good. If you haven't tried it, you should try it.
tea shops.
It's really, really good. But sometimes, like the OG ones, they make it like super spicy. It depends on what you like. If you don't like it too spicy, then yeah, that's the thing. Okay. Got the tea. Uncle hooking us up with the tea. Thank you, Uncle. Okay. Oh, he got that. Woo. I like their cups.
I remember the first time that Daria and I came into this restaurant. So this was in one of our first ones we ever filmed. We filmed here back in, right when we started the channel. I think video number like 4 or 5 ever. We came here to film this. We've come back, gosh, we were here, History of Curry we taped here. It's been a few, we've come to this restaurant, but it's always just because of this. The balance of the spices, the sweetness, and the black tea is just, and again, even here in Bangkok, like you have this on the streets in India and it costs pennies. And here it's not much more. When we first started coming here, this was 10 baht on the menu, which is like 25, 30 cents. They've raised it, it's about 40 cents now.
Damn.
Oh, man.
40 cents.
I am gonna crash so hard.
In the early 1800s, as England was fighting wars over tea, well, the biggest issue back home wasn't supply, it was the quality of the water.
Okay.
So it didn't matter
Okay.
how good the tea might have been, it all tasted awful when steeped in the dirty runoff of the River Thames. So one nobleman, a Lord Charles of Northumberland, began to ask his cooks to soften his tea with the dried peel of bergamot oranges. As he was the powerful Earl of Grey, well, this would soon reach the general public.
Earl
As tea spread across the
Grey.
world in the 19th century, well, we very quickly see the emergence of much of what we now know today. Moroccan mint tea got its start completely by accident when a British clipper in the 1850s was headed to the
He's a clipper, Chad. He makes Twitch clips.
Baltics but got caught in the crossfire of
The
Crimean
OG
War.
clippers.
So the boat turned around, limped into port at Mogador, and unloaded the cargo. Then some enterprising vendors brewed it up with mint and sugar, and since then, well, it's been a North African essential. Turkish tea would show up much later, after the fall of the Ottoman Empire.
Ooh.
With coffee suddenly unavailable, the new government encouraged tea farming and began cultivation in the province of Rize. So important would this new crop become that multiple Black Sea cities changed their names to reflect the chai industry. And today, Turkey is the world's largest per capita tea drinking country.
Oh, wow.
In Russia, well, the first shipment of tea might have been rejected by the Tsar's ambassador, but soon enough that mistake would be corrected. And by the years of Catherine the Great, tons of Chinese tea was being sent overland by caravan. Its spread to the general public would begin in the 19th century, in part thanks to writers like Pushkin and Dostoevsky, the latter writing in 1864 that if he had to choose between saving the world and having a cup of tea, well, he wouldn't skip his daily fix.
Damn, that's
A number of
crazy.
tea innovations show up in the United States, starting in 1843 when a British immigrant to New York started marketing something he called English breakfast, which would be exported to England and become a favorite of Queen Victoria. The classic American
Okay.
sweet tea shows up near Charleston, South Carolina, the home of the only large-scale tea plantation in the U.S. There, it was first served in 1890 at a 25-year reunion of Civil War Confederate veterans. 14 years later, iced tea would be introduced to the world at the St. Louis World's Fair, when a sudden heat wave meant that 20 million visitors were stuck in scorching temperatures, so a vendor at the East Indies Pavilion bought a few blocks of ice, poured his tea on top of it, and a new sensation was born. And perhaps the greatest American tea innovation appears in 1901, when two women from Milwaukee patented the world's first tea bags, catching on widely after World War II when everyone was in motion and wanted something fast and easy. And the years after the war also brings us more breakthroughs. In the 1950s, with Malaysia's post-colonial economy
Ooh.
struggling, vendors came up with a method to utilize the scraps and cheapest leftovers of the tea plant. They'd mix the bitter tea dust with water and condensed milk and then pour it back and forth to combine everything and mellow out the flavor. Today, tea
Oh, yeah, they do all that,
tea
yeah.
is essential on the Malay Peninsula. The Thai variation, Chayan or Thai iced tea, dates back to the late 1940s, the invention claimed by a Chinese immigrant family who would call their brand Chatramuet, or Thai tea number 1. This wouldn't truly gain popularity until a government initiative convinced opium farmers in the Golden Triangle to switch to tea cultivation and prices went down. You might think that matcha ice cream is a brand new thing, but that actually dates as far back as the 19th century, when Japanese royal banquets added tea powder into shaved ice. This would be turned into soft serve in Tokyo in 1958 and then brought into the global mainstream by Haagen-Dazs, launching in 1996. And then, of course, there's bubble tea, which is now ubiquitous in just about every major city.
There you go,
This got
Chad.
its start in Taiwan in 1986.
Oh, it was from
And since then,
Taiwan.
the combination of sweet
In the
milk tea and
80s?
pearls
That's
of
crazy.
tapioca has been a
I never
rocket
knew.
ship to the big time. As for who specifically gets the credit, well, there are two tea shops that say it was their invention. They both have long and convoluted origin stories, and they both spent decades in court fighting each other. But finally, in 2019, the judge threw out the lawsuit because since there were no patents involved, well, credit didn't matter. Officially, bubble tea now belonged to the world. And because of its success,
Damn.
along with our passion for anything tea-related, well, our production keeps increasing year over year. In 2023, reaching 6.7 million metric tons sold on the global market. And it's not slowing down. Today we use tea in skincare products. As
We
air
gotta use tea
fresheners,
everywhere
including
now.
Everything from Kit Kat bars to soft drinks.
There we go.
Starbucks,
Sprite plus
Thai
tea.
latte,
Wait, they actually have
cookies,
it?
and Chinese tea boiled eggs. We add tea to cat litter, and use tea bags
What?
as whatever this is, but most of
Tea
all,
to cat litter.
we just love the classic. Across the planet, we consume 5 billion cups of tea per day.
Wow.
And 1,250 years after Lu Yu told us to keep it simple. Well, we're still following his advice, and we haven't yet managed to improve on the original, although that is up for argument. Tea has become so intrinsic in our lives that it's become part of our language. If we don't like something, we say it's not our cup of tea. To share gossip is to spill the tea, and much ado about nothing is a storm in a teacup or a tempest in a teapot. We drink tea with breakfast when we wake up in the morning, take breaks for tea in the middle of the afternoon, and enjoy it with shisha late into the evening.
Yo, I don't know
But
about
whether
that.
we drink it at sunrise or sunset, whether we prefer it green or
I don't know
black
about
or
which
Earl
shisha.
Grey, if we add milk or sugar or like ours hot or cold, if we call it tea or cha or la pet, the one thing we can all agree is that this story has gone on long enough. But at least after all this talking, well, you know what's supposed to be good for your speaking voice.
Alright, chat. Well, that was the video. Go follow them. Go support the video, okay? Go support the video. Go follow them. All that good stuff. All that good stuff. Yeah. Okay. Well, chat, I think I'm gonna end it here. Okay? You guys take care of yourselves. Take care of yourselves, okay? I love you guys. I will see y'all on Monday. Alright? I will be back on Monday. Very short stream today, you know? But I've got some things to do. I want to chill a little bit. But yeah. I'm not gonna raid today. I'm not gonna raid. But yeah. Okay, well, chat, take care of yourselves. Have a good day. Have a good night. I will see you on Monday, okay? Bye. Bye bye.